Hello Year 9 and welcome to this lesson on the symmetrical family. Now today we're going to be looking at whether it is a myth or reality. Last lesson we were looking at young woman's argument for as to how present or how prevalent the symmetrical family are in today's society. So our learning objective for today, to begin with, is to consider and understand arguments for and against the presence of the symmetrical family. Our challenge is to evaluate whether the symmetrical family is a myth or reality. Now, you will do now is on the left hand side we have bronze, silver and gold. And you're going to decide which statement is going to be correct. So we have 1 to 10. Okay, so I'll read for each statement. You're going to write down which one you think is going to be correct or incorrect. So Parsons coined the cold bar theory. Murdoch said that the family had 4 vital functions. Petersky said that the family is the unit of consumption for capitalism. Number 4, the proletariat are the ones who own factories and the means of production. Number 5, feminism is a conflict theory. Number 6, Marxism is a conflict theory. Number 7, functionalism is a conflict theory. Number 8, Rappaport coined or said that there were 5 different types of family diversity. Number 9, according to feminists, women do the single shift. And number 10, the bourgeoisie oppress the proletariat. So we'll work our way from the top. The first one is incorrect, only because it's called the warm bar theory. So Parsons did in fact coin the warm bar theory, and that was the idea that women acted as a bit of an emotional sponge for any stresses in which their family went through. So when the husband would come back from work, the woman would absorb all of the stress and he'd be ready to go out to work the following day. Number 2, Murdoch said that the family has 4 vital functions. That's correct. Number 3, that should be Zaretsky. Zaretsky is the one who said that the family is a unit of consumption. Now, if we look at number 4, the proletariat are the ones who own factories and the means of production. That is going to be incorrect. It should be the bourgeoisie. Number 5, number 6, and number 7. So number 5 and number 6 are correct. These are both conflict theories. Number 7, functionalism is a consensus theory. Number 8 is correct. Rappaport did coin the 5 different family types within diversity. Number 9 is incorrect. Feminists argue that women do the triple, if not the double shift. Number 10 is going to be correct. So again, you should be comfortable with these statements. If you want, then I suggest you go over your notes with regards to the family. But you should be comfortable with these sort of areas. These are some questions again. Pause the video, and this is going to reflect what we did last lesson. So pause the video, try and answer verbally these questions, and we'll see how confident you are in it. But you should be somewhat familiar. We went over these questions to begin with. Okay, so what did young woman what did young woman argue is happening to the family? That should be that there is the emergence of a new man and that the family is becoming more symmetrical. What specific examples of change was happening to the family? Men were doing more housework within the household. Conjugal roles were becoming shared and somewhat equal. And that somewhat argues or answers the third question. Conjugal roles, they were becoming, to a certain extent, both joint and segregated. It depended, but the level of effort and the level of work required was becoming equal. What is stratified diffusion? That was very simply, again, that middle class and upper class values would eventually simmer its way down towards the working class. So eventually, values and the family structure and the attitudes in which the middle class and the upper class had, that would eventually, as time progressed, seep down into the working class. What did Sue Sharp discover in her study? She found that when she interviewed working class women, I think 20 years prior to when she did it again, these were girls in a secondary school in a working class area in London, and they valued, to begin with, family, having children, education, and then work. And then when she returned 20 years later, she asked a different set of girls, and she found that their priorities had changed. So their priorities had went from being home orientated to education and kind of career orientated. So their 4 main priorities were, in order, education, career, family, and then children. So again, massive difference with regards to how things have changed. Right, so what I would like you to do, with the slides which have been put on Show My Homework and with the scanned pages, you're going to pause the video and choose either bronze, silver or gold and make notes on these areas, and you're going to complete the table that you can see on the right hand side. So on the table you can see to what extent is the family symmetrical. We are leading up to a 12-mark question. You aren't going to be answering it today, but I've given you an example of one argument for symmetrical, one argument not symmetrical. You're going to collect points, please, using knowledge from your previous lesson and on page 106, and use that to fill in the table. So pause the video, spend about 10 to 15 minutes on this, and then we can move on. Right, now that you've done that, our next slide is going to be looking at some statistics. Now bear in mind, these stats are going to help us with our future arguments. And you're going to want to add these points or summarize these points into your tables. So for example, if we look at table 1 on the left hand side, changing attitudes, gender roles, we can see that they're using a time frame of 1989 to 2012, and they're asking certain statements and they're seeing as to what the opinions are. Okay, so already we can see that in kind of row 1, the statement that people agree that a man's job is to earn money and a woman's job is to look after the home, that went from 28 to 13%. Then that suggests that things are becoming more symmetrical because attitudes are changing. Okay, and if attitudes are changing, then the chance of things being, actioned and, them manifesting themselves in that reality is going to be very likely. So if less people are believing that it is a woman's job to look after the home and a family, then that difference is going to suggest that more women are now doing different, or they're now actually working, or there's been a bit of a balance. So again, go through each one. I think we went over the one on the left hand side a few days ago or last week, so that should be quite familiar with you. So go through that. On the right hand side we have the average reported hours spent by men and women in couples per week. Now again, all of this is from the British Social Attitude Survey. Okay, so the BSA, that's what it stands for, and it tells you here that you've got a difference in male in kind of reporting of hours done per week. So you'd find that one person would report how many hours they thought they did, and then their partner would report on them. So for example, in one scenario, the average here, you can see that 8.3 hours for men self-reported housework was about 8.3 hours, and reported by the partner it was actually less. It was 3 hours less, or just under 3 hours less. Okay, so the women in the relationship identified that the men were doing less work than the men actually had thought that they were doing. And if we look at the female scenario, females reported less housework done in comparison to what their husbands thought that they were doing. So again, really interesting to see as to how different people in a relationship will view certain things. So pause this video, make notes, and apply these findings into your table. Right, so again, this is the argument of the new man. So Charter suggests that there is a new man emerging within society and within families. Okay, and this is someone who is kind of fully involved in the housework and the childcare, and you would need to decide now where would you place this argument. Okay, so naturally you should be placing it in the symmetrical side, because it's arguing that there is a new man emerging who is who's more caring, more thoughtful, and more involved in the housework. And then what I would like you to think about as your challenge is, to what extent is this new man wishful thinking? Is it really as common as Charter is saying it is? Okay, so pause the video and add this statement into the relevant side. And what you've noticed that there are now changing roles of fathers. So many fathers from dual worker family play a great role in their lives of children today. So although it is also noted that fathers' increased involvement can cause tensions, as mothers think that fathers tend to cherry pick the jobs they like to do around the house. So this argument here is that even though men are becoming more involved within the household, there is an argument, or a feminist argument, which has emerged whereby they believe that men are cherry picking, so they're choosing to do certain jobs which are easier to them and they're neglecting the main jobs within the household. So even though it may seem as though men are doing more within the home, they're only cherry picking certain jobs or tasks which are easier for them, but it still appears as though that they are doing more. So then again, that could be its own sort of criticism. So this could be an argument here, the cherry pick argument here could go back into the not symmetrical point. Okay, so again, really think about where you would place these sort of things. Now, so after this is all done, what I would like you to do is write a conclusion for me. Now, you need to decide whether you think the family is symmetrical or not. So are you going to be on the side of the functionalist view or the feminist view? And you need to be quite clear and concise. Now, bear in mind again, you have to be direct and to the point. You have to try and provide some sort of point or evidence which is going to be well developed and a little bit different or not repetitive of what you've mentioned in your main arguments. So again, choose one for now, and you've got sentence starters over here. So you've got in conclusion, overall, in summary, or finally, and you're going to decide whether you think the family is symmetrical or not, and try and create a developed paragraph. Once you've done this, screenshot or take a picture of your work and upload it onto Show My Homework.